Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So friends, in this Dhamma talk, I was going to talk about the middle path between the two extremes. And of course, even here in the meditation hall, it seems like the two extremes, people sitting in front and people sitting in the back, and where's all the people in the middle? So that's what often happens in our mind and in our life, that the mind also gets caught up in these two extremes and lose the ground in the middle. And so I wanted to talk about some different aspects of that. And basically, our life in the world, and especially our mind, the only thing our mind knows in its conditioned state is, the opposites. And so we only know dark because we know what light is. We know what is old because we know what young is. We know what is beautiful because we have an idea of what ugly is. And basically everything that we've experienced in life, the mind has kind of categorized everything we experience into things it likes and things what it doesn't like. And the mind is constantly moving between the things that it likes and the things that it doesn't like. That means it's trying to capture or hold on to the things that it likes or thinks that it likes, that brings it some pleasure or happiness, and trying to get away from the things that it doesn't like. That means painful feelings, unpleasant experiences. And this is the nature of the conditioned mind, and it's also the foundation of the Buddha's teaching about suffering. And one of the definitions of suffering is not getting what one wants, in getting what one doesn't want. And basically our whole life revolves between that sort of tug of war or push and pull between, again, it boils down to basically pleasurable feeling and painful feeling. And the mind is always seeking for more pleasurable feeling because it understands what is painful feeling. And because painful, these again are two of the opposites, pleasure and pain, or pleasurable feeling and painful feeling. And these feelings are one of the main objects of the meditation practice. And it's because of the dissatisfaction, the mind that is always wanting to seek more and more comfort or pleasurable feeling. And the more you emphasize and want pleasurable feelings, the more the mind also re-emphasizes the painful feeling, or reinforces the idea that these things are painful. In the same way, with every time you regard something as being pleasurable or unpleasurable, that strengthens one's greed and desire for more pleasurable feeling. So it's kind of people's minds are caught in a kind of tug of war and a push and pull back between the pleasurable feeling, and the more they emphasize and give importance and seek after pleasurable feeling, at the same time, without their knowing it, they're reinforcing their aversion and their idea of pleasurable and painful feelings. And so it's a kind of a, catch-22, or it's a kind of a situation that the one keeps on reinforcing the other. And the mind can never be satisfied in that because of impermanence, because everything changes. And that's the fundamental, experience or the cause of suffering, is the mind caught between this tug of war, push and pull between pleasure and pain, because neither can be satisfied, because all feelings are impermanent. So even though you might get an object of your pleasurable feeling, that feeling can change because the object changes, and you can't keep the object forever, whether it's just a momentary experience or it's some actual physical object that you have, like a new car or anything else that gives one pleasure. But they're subject to, impermanence, breaking up, getting stolen, getting destroyed. And the same with the pleasurable feeling. Whatever causes us pleasurable feeling is also subject to impermanence. And they're beyond our control. We cannot control the objects around us, and we also cannot control even our own idea about those objects, because we can also change our mind about objects. As the objects of our pleasure or pain change, those feelings could also change. So that's why the Buddha, the foundation of mindfulness on the contemplation of feelings was really the central point in understanding the mind. And, the whole of the Buddhist teachings, you might say, revolves around the 2 verses of the Dhammapada, which all of you have probably heard many times, that all actions are led by the mind. Mind is their master, mind is their maker. If one acts or speaks with an impure mind, then suffering follows, as the cartwheel follows the foot of the ox. And if one acts or speaks with a pure state of mind, then happiness follows, as your shadow follows you around. So you could say that, the whole of the Buddhist teachings about suffering and happiness revolves around those statements about that it all originates in the mind. And the main thing is, what is a pure mind and what is an impure mind? So our actions based on greed, hatred, and delusion are considered unwholesome actions, and actions based on non-greed, non-hatred, and wisdom are the more pure thoughts and motivations. But it even goes down to a subtler level than that in terms of understanding our own mind and understanding what is the consciousness. And actually the word meditation, in English language, The root of meditation is M-E-D-I. And so people say meditation, 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 but what is meditation? And so if you examine the roots, the M-E-D-I, it comes from the same root as medicine, and also mediation. And also you could say media. And it's interesting to see the correlation of these terms and how it applies to meditation. So medicine, again, coming back to the middle path. Medicine stands in the middle between sickness and health. So a person gets sick, that means they've lost their health. So you take medicine to regain that balance. Because something went out of whack, something went out of business, went to one or other the extreme. And so medicine means to heal. And so does meditation. So meditation heals the mind. So regular medication heals the body being out of balance, and meditation is the medicine for the mind. And even the word mediation, some of you might even have a job as being a mediator. What does a mediator do?
Heals the rift between people.
Yeah, it settles disputes, right? Two disputing parties. Each one has their own opinion about what is the truth of their problems, and the mediator tries to find a middle ground, because each person is clinging tightly to their opinions. Well, they did this to me, or they said that to me, and the other one is saying, well, they said this and did that to me, and who knows the truth? It's like he said, she said. We don't know the truth. And so a mediator tries to find a middle ground in between. So some people have to give and take. Each person has to give and take a little bit if there's to be any type of resolution to the problem. And even the word media. What does the media do? They also are supposed to give a balanced viewpoint of what is happening in the world, two sides, right? But nowadays we have media that's based on leaning on one particular political affiliation, and the other one leaning on the other particular affiliation, and they've lost that center ground of really trying to get to the truth, because again they're clinging to their opinions. And most of those opinions have their origin in the past, in future. And again, coming back to what brings us pleasure or pain. And people clinging on to one particular belief because they think it's the right way, and others cling on to the other belief because they think it's the right way. So, but in the media they try to try to get to the truth of the underlying causes of problems, and so in the same way, our meditation practice, coming from that same root, addresses those different forms of healing the mind. But coming back again to the of being in the middle, the middle path, and one of the primary, in terms of the mindfulness in the meditation practice, is to bring the mind back to the present moment. Because the mind, for most people, is just lost in the past and future. And so you're remembering what happened in the past and presume that that's going to happen in the future. So you project that into the future with fear, worry, anxiety, and so on. And, trying to sort of control the future that way. But again, we can't really control the future because of impermanence. So anyway, bringing the mind to the present, all problems basically are problems of the past and future. Try to think of any problem that you have and see if it's not connected in some way to the past or future, even the past second or even the future minute from now. Anxiety about worrying about what you're going to do in 30 minutes. Oh, I have to go here and that there. So basically all problems are problems of the past and future. Because that's all the mind has known. It's lost its connection to the present moment. That's so wonderful about the Dhamma. One of the meanings of Dhamma is it's timeless. So Dhamma has a lot of meanings. And usually it's referred to as the conditioned Dharma, which are all the things of the world that are made up of so many other things. But people often forget also it refers to the unconditioned Dhamma too. And the unconditioned Dhamma is basically the present moment awareness. It's not caught or tied to the past or future. It's the natural vibration of consciousness. I like to call it the vibration of awareness. It's not caught by any definitions or any connotations of past or future. And it's the natural state of our mind. We're basically born with that, as I said in many of the previous talks about, when a baby is born, its mind basically is born with an oceanic awareness, which is no thoughts of past or future, I or other in it. But as we grow up, we lost that connection. So the very basis of our consciousness still has that connection to the present moment awareness. But again, we've lost that natural connection to it, of which the body is the representative. And that's why the Buddha even chose the body as being the starting point for developing mindfulness. And there was a reason for that. Because again, the body is always in the present moment. Whatever it's doing is sitting, standing, walking, bending, stretching, doing any kind of movements, and the sensations that are arising in the body, these are occurring in the present moment. But we've lost that connection to the body, and which is the anchor to the present moment. As I mentioned this morning, we have to develop an anchor to the present moment, because we've lost that. And ever since we were a young child, and the more you focus on the future and focused on, the pleasure and pain brought about by the external world, the further and further we get away from that connection to the present moment or the body. I use those kind of interchangeably. And the body is the present moment. I mean, when you're feeling in the body, you're feeling basically the present moment. It's only when you start thinking about the body, oh, my body's this way, oh, I'm going to get this kind of problem, or I had that kind of problem. Then that's when the mind develops worries. But when you're actually just feeling the pure sensation the pure physical vibrations of the body, like just feeling the subtle little touch of the clothing rubbing against the skin. It's a very nice, light sensation. It's the present moment. Or feeling your breath going in and out, feeling the pressure of your buttocks pressing the cushion. And even hearing sounds, that's also the present moment. Any physical vibration is something occurring in the present moment. But it's what our mind adds on to that. Its interpretation and its recognition of those objects, and then allowing the attachment and aversion from the past memory to come into play. And it takes the mind further and further away from the present moment. How am I going to get that pleasurable feeling in the future? How am I going to keep this unpleasant feeling or painful feeling coming to me again in the future? So the more we're caught up in that kind of thinking, the further and further we get away from the actual present moment or the vibration of awareness, which again is always literally right beneath your nose. So, and that is the real middle path, the mind that's resting in the middle. So we use the term mindfulness a lot, right? So mindfulness, basically it means that present moment-centered awareness. But normally when we're first starting to practice, we need something more specific. So we say mindfulness of breathing. We say mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of our mental states. That's because the conditioned mind needs some more clear object to focus on. And that's where we develop also the practice of the concentration. But later, in its more developed form, mindfulness doesn't need to be fixed on any particular object. It's just the natural present space or state of awareness through which things come and go. So, anyway, the fundamental cause of suffering is the split between the body and the mind. And that means being split off from the present moment. And hardly anybody in our life has ever told us otherwise. Did any of your parents or doctors or teachers in school ever tell you to, keep that connection to the body, keep that connection to the present moment? Probably not.
Never positive, but it was like, why aren't you paying attention?
Right, planning out your future. Of course, it's not to say that we can't just always be living necessarily in the present moment without thoughts of the past or future. The past or future is not the problem, it's the clinging to it and the obsessing to it and thinking that the past and the future are totally what your life has been identified with. So one can still think about the future while remaining grounded in the present moment. Of course, that takes some practice to do. But anyway, that's why, the Buddha formulated his teaching of meditation on the four foundations of mindfulness. And even though the root cause of suffering is within the mind, we have to reach the mind through the body. Because only that grounded, that connection to the present moment will allow us to clearly observe our mind without our prejudices and biases and conditionings distorting our ability to see clearly. Because the mind automatically jumps to its conclusions and its opinions and ideas about everything, because it's not grounded and not centered. So that's why the Buddha started his practice of meditation in developing that mindfulness of the body for that purpose of getting grounded in the present moment. Of course, there's other aspects of it too, but especially using the body as that anchoring to the present moment. That's the only thing that we really have, a tangible object that's always within our reach. And we're carrying this body around with us 24/7, 365. The last number we don't know how many years we'll live. But the fact that we're carrying this body around with us, and it's the natural connection to the present moment. So, and then of course there's the breathing within the body. And so when we're practicing meditation, the mindfulness of breathing, that helps us to stay centered in the body. Now, of course, talk about using mindfulness of breathing for a lot of other things, attaining jhanas and so many other things. But apart from all that, the real functional purpose of the mindfulness of breathing is able to stay centered and connected in the body, because that's where the world arises. And another important statement of the Buddha was that the world, the arising of the world, the ceasing of the world, and the path leading to the ceasing of the world is right within this 5 or 6 foot long body with its nervous system, memory, and consciousness. So basically our experience of the world, arises through the mental process. And so to be able to pay attention, especially to the feelings and sensations that are arising through the body. So the mindfulness of breathing, because it's the most predominant sort of function apart from the heart beating. So both the breathing and the heart beating are the two primary, vital biological functions of keeping this body alive. But the heart beating is much more subtle to notice. And the breathing is also connected to our emotions. So, it's easier for most people to maintain or develop that constant awareness of the breathing process. So anyway, that connection to the breathing helps to keep the mind centered in the body, where the sensations are arising. And that's why the mindfulness of feelings, the second foundation of mindfulness, once you are practicing mindfulness of the body to get centered in the body, then you have a front row seat to those feelings and the sensations, that are going through the nervous system. That means sensations from the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and then from even within the mind itself. Because as I mentioned before, that's really where the world arises. The mind springs into activity based onto the sensations that are going through the body. But because most people are not centered in the body, they don't see the sensations arising clearly before they've already triggered off their thoughts, the past or future connected with those sensations and the objects, and their emotional attachments based on that as well. And so they get carried away and dragged off into a whole world of lost in their mind and thoughts. And they lose complete awareness that they're even sitting there on the floor, that they even have a body. Did anybody notice that today in your meditation? Anybody catch themselves totally lost in thought and really, oh my God, I'm still sitting in this room? So it's so easy for the mind to lose that connection to the body in present moment. And probably I venture to state that the average person is, totally lost in their thoughts probably 75% of the time, and that's probably being generous in terms of, as opposed to being grounded in the present moment, feeling the body and aware of what one is, physically doing. So, and there's sensations, sensations and feelings are often synonymous. So we talk about them as being synonymous. But the sensations are what is coming through the nervous system. Like you hear a sound, okay? It's just a sound sensation coming through the nervous system. Or you press your skin, okay? That is a tactile sensation moving through the nervous system. Or even you're seeing something and it stimulates the optic nerve and there's sensation going through the optic nerve to the brain, and for the other senses too, smell, taste, and even the mind, we'll mention later. But so those 5 physical senses, those are what produce the sensations. And you can ask any biologist or neurologist and he'll tell you, yes, that's the way it's happening. But then some of those sensations, because of memory and past experience, we identify these particular sensations are ones that I like because they bring some kind of pleasurable feeling. There's some kind of attraction to it, kind of an attraction, the mind is kind of... And the other feelings bring the opposite, kind of a pulling away. So we can notice that when we're meditating and all of a sudden we feel some discomfort arising or some sharp pain, we can see that immediate tendency to want to pull away. So right there we can see where the arising of pleasure and pain arises, and then we cognize those objects, and then the mind struggles again to want to hold on to the pleasurable one and get away from the painful one. Because that's all connected to the past and the future. Because the mind is remembering the pleasurable objects produced by that sensation and wants more of it. Or it's remembering and projecting the pain that will come to it If you keep sitting for another 10 minutes, my leg will go to sleep, or projecting what kind of pain or discomfort is going to come. And, that takes the mind out. So anyway, that's the importance of observing feelings. And in the mindfulness practice, we train ourselves to observe those. But they're arising in the present moment. These are not abstract ideas. These sensations are occurring in the present moment. But it's because you're grounded and centered in the body, because that's where it's happening. Because you can't decide where the sensation is going to come from. You could be sitting there trying to focus on your breathing, all of a sudden a sharp pain arises in your ear or your eye or anywhere else, or a strong itch. And so you have to have awareness right there and then on that to try to observe it, or its pull on you. Or you might have a sharp pain or something on your foot. Maybe an ant, starts biting your toe and sending, shock waves through the body. So we can't pick and choose what kind of sensations are going to come through any part of our body at any time. And that's why when the mind is centered in the body, then we have that more peripheral vision, and we can detect when sensations are coming from different places in order to try to relax around them, and then to observe how they arise, and especially the pull they have on the mind. It's not just observing painful feelings, how they're impermanent, is how they're affecting our mind, how the pleasurable feeling or the painful feeling is affecting our mind, that aversion or attachment, and then how that causes us to spin out. So the body is simply the vehicle for observing our mind, and all of our thoughts and emotions are triggered off through the various types of sensations that we are experiencing. And then, what? The reaction, right? So then once the mind is, thought about the feelings, then the thoughts, how am I going to get that feeling? To get the pleasurable feeling or the painful ones? And then that causes, the mind to react. Like if there's a painful feeling on the head, to want to lift up your hand to scratch, to get rid of the unpleasant feeling. Or you hear a pleasant feeling coming through the ear, some bird. Oh, what kind of bird is that? Oh, such a nice little birdie. And then you see that mind getting carried away outside. Or it could be any other type of sound. But anyway, you see how easily the mind is pulled away by what it regards as being pleasant feelings or painful feelings. And the sound of a bird has no more absolute pleasurable, painful feeling than a car, crash. It's just sound vibration. But it's our memory and interpretation of it that causes us to, form its sort of reactions. So, because it's in our reactions, it's where you create the karma, right? So we all know what the law of karma is. It's basically our habit reactions. And those habit reactions, our reactions to things, bring results. As in those Dhammapada verses I mentioned at the beginning. And if the actions, thoughts and actions are based on greed, in egoistic kind of clinging and greed and anger and aversion, and we take our, actions of thoughts and speech and body, then painful results come. Or the opposite actions, if we have wisdom and understanding, and our actions are based on non-attachment, friendliness or non-hatred and wisdom, then those reactions are more pleasant. So that's the key point, because once we've done a karmic action, we can't really take it back. Whatever deliberate thought you have, or speech, you speak to somebody, or you make some body language toward some person, or breaking the precepts basically. Once you've done that, again, that energy goes out into the universe and mingles with other minds and bodies, and comes back to us in one way or another as some pleasant or painful experience. And once we've done that action, we can't take it back. And say, even though maybe you shouted an insult to some person, and you say, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I'm sorry. It's too late." That word has gone out, especially now with the internet, right? Within 3 seconds, 1 million people have heard what happened before you even, had the ability to say "I'm sorry" or something. So, especially nowadays with the kind of internet, those actions go out in the world and come back to us. And so, really, that's the key. The key focus in the practice of the meditation is to be aware of our intentions to speak and act, but even to think too, because even thinking some negative thought, even though you might not physically carry it out, the thought itself is like radio waves that goes out in the world, and people's minds can receive that even on an unconscious level, and they won't even know what's happening, but it may cause reactions in themselves that they don't even know how they're getting it. So the main thing in minimizing suffering in the life is not to create those types of negative thoughts, speech, and actions that are going to go out in the world and come back to us in one way or another as worry, guilt, fear, anxiety, and so on. But the average person cannot do that, immediately, because they're not in touch with their minds. So that's why the Buddha had us start in the practice of meditation to start at ground zero. That means the present moment. And grounded in the body, where you're aware of the sensations that are coming through in the body. But first we have to be well grounded in the body by always reminding ourselves, yes, I'm sitting, standing, walking, laying down, moving the arm, turning this way, turning that way, looking up, looking down. Because this is probably the easiest thing to do. Because it's immediately what we're in touch with. And the body can't do anything without a command to tell it to. So even to look, turn your eyes up, it requires some impulse. a kind of a thought. And then what is causing that? And once you see the impulse to do it, you can actually think, oh yes, why do I want to look up? Well, I saw something that looked like a spider on the ceiling, and I'm worried. You know? Okay, or whatever it is. And it would always come back to some kind of a pleasurable feeling or a displeasurable feeling, or some kind of attraction, maybe not even pleasure or not, but some attraction or some indifference. So if it's not actual painful feeling, it might be an attraction. But anyway, there's always some reason that you're going to move the body. And that's also part of a clear comprehension in the practice of mindfulness, understanding why am I about to do something? Like what we did with the lunch. Why am I about to eat food? Well, to keep living. And why do you want to keep living? And, you know, you go on and on. But so, you know, the main point is to see even though suffering originates from our actions and thoughts, the end of suffering starts with, you know, being grounded in the present moment, to allow us to follow the natural route to being able to clearly observe the mind. So anyway, that's why I always, you know, refer to that you know, the body is the doorway to the mind. It's the threshold for reaching the mind. And the way the Buddha clearly laid out the steps of the 4 foundations of mindfulness is that, you know, his first instructions were first sit down in a good posture. And then mindfully start breathing. So being mindful of the posture helps to ground the mind in the present moment. And then you focus in on the breathing. That helps to hold the attention even sort of deeper in the body. In the beginning, you might feel just the outer part of the butt, sitting. Oh yes, the pain in my butt, right? Excuse me. But you know, you feel that gross type of sensation, or the feeling of your 2 hands touching together, or the feeling of the clothing touching the skin. So these are sort of the external body. And that's, you know, what we can easily feel. And as by, you know, feeling the posture in the beginning. And then as you're able to hold the attention there, then you'll be easy to then focus the attention on the breathing that's happening just inside. To feel the sensations of expanding and contracting. And that helps to take the mind even deeper under the skin. And as you're feeling those subtler sensations of breathing in, breathing out, then you get sort of more deeply centered in the body. And then based on that, then one starts to contemplate further, you know, the 4 elements, or one could also do the other aspects of mindfulness of the body, but especially as you gain the concentration on the breathing, you're grounded in the middle of the body. And that is where the sensations are coming through. So breathing leads to getting grounded in the body and nervous system, in touch with the sensations. And by observing sensations, you're able to see the painful, pleasant, or neutral quality of those sensations, what we call the Vedana or feelings. And this is how our mind is reacting. And you watch how the mind gets attracted to a pleasurable feeling or gets repulsed by a painful feeling. And to understand that basically we've allowed ourselves to get hooked on these feelings. Because those feelings are impermanent. And if we just give them a few seconds, if you can just watch that itch for a few seconds, kind of relax around it, even though it might be unpleasant, you kind of, force yourself to try to relax around it. And, okay, it will change, and then, my God, it changed, it vanished. So by having patience for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, maybe a little longer, because of impermanence, it's bound to change. And when it changes, then that aversion in the mind also will quickly vanish, or the desire to get rid of it. And so the practice of mindfulness also is a conservation of our energy. People are talking about conserve your energy, right? Use these lights, energy light bulbs. Turn the lights out all the time. Conserve energy, conserve your carbon footprint, Don't drive gas-guzzling cars. Talk about conserving energy. But what about the energy of our own body and mind? The same people that are talking about conserving external energy waste their internal energy. In terms of, every time you move to get away from some unpleasant feeling, or rub this, scratch that, get distracted, what's that, what's this? You're wasting energy, physical energy of the body. And that causes you to breathe faster, and so that also wears out the lungs quicker. We don't never see those connections, but nevertheless they're there on very minute levels. And then our mental energy, we waste it by getting lost in so many useless type of thoughts. So really that's where we need to practice ecology. We need to practice conserving energy in our own body and minds. And then that hopefully will allow us to conserve energy in the external world too. So that's the way that we should also see the practice of mindfulness as a conservation of energy. Our physical energy from the body, and our mental energy of just letting it run wild with all kind of unnecessary fantasies and worries and fears and so on. And while you're observing the feelings in the body, that's when you can see our thoughts connected with them. Normally we don't see our thoughts arising because it immediately gets carried away by the feeling. Like let's say you get some discomfort arises in the body. So okay, you feel some discomfort, but without even thinking about it, you just immediately, start going like this. Or, like that. So you didn't really see the aversion. You weren't even aware there was aversion there. But when you resist that initial urge to move, and you watch that feeling and how the pain builds up, then you can see that aversion arising. And you can see the ego, the thought of I arising. And that may trigger off negative thoughts, like going up and strangling the teacher because he made you sit too long. Or, so many millions of similar type of examples. But it's because we didn't clearly see the greed or the aversion because we didn't give it time to look at it. We just immediately acted on our impulses, and we didn't see how strong they were. And if we resist the temptation to move or react immediately, and can just observe, impermanence will take its course, and those sensations that produced, objects that produce those sensations will change. And then you realize, oh, yeah, I don't have to waste my energy to scratch or move, because it's going to vanish anyway. So this is the way we have to try to understand also. This is part of clear comprehension, is understanding what is this body and mind and how it's operating. But especially in terms of learning how to keep the mind in the present moment. And as long as the mind is somewhat connected to the present moment, the mind cannot get totally lost in the thoughts. And that's why the practice of movement meditation, whenever you start to move, to be aware of, okay, I'm lifting the arm now, lifting, stretching out the arm, not doing it too fast. Because if you move too fast, then you miss all the present moments in between. And then there's that rush to the future. The mind is already jumping to the future because you're in a hurry to get rid of that little itch, or in a hurry to get to your object of the pleasure. And so you bypass the present moment. You skip over the present moment. The mind jumps from the nervous system to the object, and you bypass the present moment. And that's why in mindfulness practice, it's important to, deliberately in the beginning, walk or move slower so that you can see. And when you move slowly, again, you can see that neurotic push to the future. When we're rushing around, we don't see how the mind is neurotically rushing to the future, but when we slow down, then we can see our desire to hurry up. And that spins off all kind of other, types of thoughts. So that's why the contemplation of the body, again, is such a powerful thing, but usually it's overlooked by so many people. They think mindfulness of the body is just mindfulness of the breathing. But no, that's in my experience, not even the most important one. It's learning how to slow down, and the slower, mindfully you move, then the mind is more in a continuous state, has that connection to the present moment. So you can see that urge to want to speed up, and you just say, no, relax, slow down. And you'll wind up getting more things done by moving mindfully than you do rushing around, making mistakes, having to clean up your messes, and so on, or forgetting where you put something because you weren't mindful when you put it somewhere, so you can't remember where it was, and you have to spend so much time looking for it. But when you move more mindfully and slowly in the present moment, aware of what you're doing, then everything kind of gels, everything kind of gets, more interconnected, your mind and the body. So, anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you in this Dhamma talk, and encourage you to, use that mindfulness of the body practice, again, as a way to try to maintain that connection to the present moment so that you can more clearly see the kind of feelings and sensations that are coming through, and more clearly see the urges and impulses that are rising up on account of that, to help to be able to relax and stay in a more relaxed and grounded space, because you will see how beneficial that is and how it leads to a more continuous level of present moment awareness. Okay?